What's up, guys? I'm coming to you with a bit of an unplanned video today because I just took a very quick look at the charts and I saw that alts have been moving, and I've got some interesting stuff to show you with the dominances as well. So when this tends to happen on a Friday, it can actually present you with some potentially good setups over the weekend. So I wanted to just come and I'm looking at the charts in real time as I am filming this video. So I want to give you my raw thoughts on a few altcoins. I'm literally just going to go through my watch list and see if I can find any good potential setups to alert you guys about. And so yeah, nothing planned for this video. Let's see what comes out of it. And if you are new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Annie and this is Trade Travel Chill. We're going to go straight into the dominances. And while we do that, just hit that like button if you haven't already and subscribe if you're new here so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. Now let's go and have a look at the dominances first and why it's grabbing my attention for potentially the weekend. So what you can see here is this here was my analysis from my last video where I was saying that we really need to see a lower high in the Bitcoin dominance if we are going to have a chance of alts having a further run. Now, what I'm currently liking about this so far, whilst the current candle hasn't closed, obviously, because it's a daily chart, what I am liking is that it does look like we potentially have a lower high at the top of this vector right here, but we're doing that at the same time that Bitcoin looks like it's taking a bit of a breather. So Bitcoin isn't giving us a harsh sell-off, but it is consolidating at its recent high. And so that's kind of the way the markets work. When Bitcoin is running, you won't tend to see altcoins running with it. I mean, that's kind of just a general rule. Sometimes it does, but it's rare. Generally, Bitcoin will go first, then it will take a breather, which is what we're seeing Bitcoin price do right now. And whilst it's taking that breather, the alts kind of take over and they have their turn. Now, when that happens on a Friday, because we're talking about retail traders here, what can happen is it can cause a little bit of FOMO. And if we're in an uptrend into the end of Friday, so that's when the US closes, which is Friday, 4 or 5 p.m., let's say New York time. If the uptrend continues into that, then sometimes you can see the continued uptrend throughout the weekend. So for me personally, I'm actually looking at two possibilities for trades. Either an opportunity is going to present throughout the weekend where we get a pullback first into some of our favorite altcoins, but if that pullback holds the higher time frame structure, like a higher low or something like that, that's actually going to be a good entry. Or they continue to run through the weekend. In that case, they'll create a bit of a gap. And then when the market opens Sunday, 5 p.m. New York, sometime after that, maybe Monday, we will see the pullback then. So I'm setting up for one of two potential scenarios. The scenario may present over the weekend or it may present sometime early next week. So the goal of what I'm doing, what I'm going to share with you on this video, is to mark out my best potential entries for pullbacks so that I can do that ahead of the weekend in case the pullbacks come over the weekend. And if not, nothing will change. I will keep my alerts in the same areas for next week and see if the pullback comes then. And another reason why I'm doing that is because when I had a look at a lot of alts today, I noticed that they were also reaching their 4-hour resistance. So that's going to be difficult. Either we're going to punch through on retail FOMO because it's a weekend. And then if that were to happen, that's when I would expect that the pullback will come next week. Let me find an example for you. I think Algo had a good example. So this is what I mean. See, this is the 4-hour resistance here, and it looks like we're trying to head up into that zone. I would probably say all of this here would be the 4-hour resistance, right? So a lot of altcoins look like this currently, where they're heading into their 4-hour resistance. So either the weekend is going to punch through, and if it does, next week, I'd expect the pullback for the retest and get the entries then, or they're going to reject probably by the time that the market closes today, and over the weekend we see the pullback, in which case we're looking for some key areas of interest to get our entries over the weekend. So that's the goal. So basically I've just shown you now Algo as an example, and I am going to stick to the 4-hour time frame for this because, like I said, I have seen a lot of alts are reaching their 4-hour resistance level, and so I'm looking for them to maintain structure on the 4-hour. A lot of them look like this, where we've also created a higher low and we could pull back, create another higher low before breakout That's going to give us the best entry possible. But if we don't get that, then the other option is going to be that we break out of the resistance and then we retest later. So there's still, either way, there are good trading opportunities. You're going to enter on the retest in this sort of scenario. But if we're lucky enough to get a pullback first into our zone but maintain structure, then you're getting a higher low entry. So two very, very good possibilities for altcoins from what I see. And the fact that we've got the lower high on the Bitcoin dominance is giving me a little bit more confidence. Obviously, I want to see that break the 50 EMA. It's still 50-50 until it breaks. But ideally, I want to see this part here happen next on the Bitcoin dominance. Not to say that it will happen over the weekend, but generally I want to start seeing it trending down. And the other reason why I like it is because when we have a look at the totals minus stable coins, that came back into my retest area. And right now it's also at its resistance. So again, what we're looking for here is for it to break through its resistance for continued upside. In that case, I would expect that we will get the weekend altcoin rally. If it rejects here still and continues to consolidate, then it may not be time yet, and that's where we might get the pullback idea for entries. So that's why I think for this weekend, it's better to be prepared and have your alerts set. You don't have to sit there and chart watch, but if you do the homework now, then when your alerts go off, you can take immediate action. So let's go and have a look at some altcoins. So here we have Cardano, and you can see the same sort of scenario, right? So Cardano is hitting up or has hit up against its 4-hour resistance. So we're really looking for the exact same structure, either a breakout and then a retest, and the entry will be on the retest, or we have our pullback. And for me, I'm looking just where is the 4-hour vector candle within this last push up. That's going to be my ideal entry zone. Now, of course, it may not pull back that far, so it's a matter of monitoring. But for me, I don't see why it shouldn't pull back into a high volume zone. Like, I don't really see why it will stay here unless, of course, it's getting ready to do this scenario where it just breaks out. Now, when I add my EMAs, it gives me a little bit more confidence in this area as well, because the 50 EMA is also in that zone. This area right here is quite a key zone. So it's been resistance, it's been support. Yeah, a nice retest back here. It's about 0.77 for Cardano. That would be a really ideal entry where you would feel like you're getting a nice higher low. You wait for some bullish candlestick confirmations to give you the confidence that that's as low as it's going to go. And then you've got a nice structure, and you would expect that once it moves out of there, the next step is probably going to be to break this current resistance. AVAX is another one doing the same thing. So you'll see a lot of these looking very similar. And look, some of them don't, to be honest with you. Like, let me just pick another one. What's this one on the list? 𝗟𝗶𝗃𝗏. Look, see, that's still a lower high. So if you're just looking for something simple to do this weekend, just don't bother about the ones that aren't following that structure, and just look in your watch list for anything that is. So AVAX it makes it very easy to know where to look for your pullback zones. With AVAX, I'm kind of more interested in this area here, again, where it's acted as support and resistance many times. Not that I trade off support and resistance, because that's not part of my strategy. But when that area lines up with the things that I do use, like the 50 EMA, which is the blue EMA, and like vectors, then it makes sense for that to be the zone to look for. So I'm looking around this area. It could even be that it just comes back to the bottom of this vector here. That would be ideal. Somewhere at around, what is this, 23.5 to 24.3 kind of zone. But when setting alerts for this, because obviously, like I said, I'm not going to sit and chart watch, I'm allergic to that. But what I would do is, even though that's my zone, I actually move it up higher than my zone. I put my alert there. So that way I can get triggered early, then come back to see at the time if it has actually entered into the zone and given me the bullish candlesticks that I'm looking for. Now, whilst I'm looking on the 4-hour chart for this technical analysis, my actual entries are always taken on one time frame lower than what I chart on. So in the case that this actually did come down into my entry zone, what I would be looking for to get those candlestick confirmations that I am talking about, I would be looking for those on the 1 hour time frame. So anything like a railroad track, hammers, star formation, bullish engulfing, things like that on the 1 hour time frame that lined up somewhere around the 50 EMA. If we got there, then that would be an entry for me. Again, if it breaks out and retests, that would be the second chance entry. Obviously buying higher, but you're buying now on more confirmation. And at this point, I don't really even think it matters to buy breakout and retest, because when you zoom out on a lot of altcoins right now, a lot of them look like this. They have this really nice rounded bottom. And like I said, they're at their 4 hour resistance, where if they break out, the next move to the upside is pretty significant. So if you look at this drop here, for example, that was a lot of volume, a big high volume drop through there. And the vector candle that started that drop is all the way up here. So the target is quite decent. And that's why in this case, like I personally prefer to be a pivot trader, which means that I'm looking for changes in structure at the bottom or at the top of a trend. But in a case like this, I would take a breakout and retest trade if that's the best that I got, because when I look left on many altcoins right now, once they get through their 4 hour resistance, the upside on a lot of them is really quite large. And that's only to here. That would be your first target. Then you've got, a few other areas like this that also had very big drops. So they could turn out to be really good trades. And that's why in a case like this, I would take a breakout and retest. But I always want the cheapest price possible. So I'm going to have the second scenario here and hope that I come back, get my higher low first. I'm just not banking on it because, like I said, we're heading into a weekend, and if we have retail FOMO, we may break out instead of getting retests. Look here, DAG is another one. So again, when you zoom out on DAG, again, it's around about its 4 hour resistance. It's a big wiki kind of zone, this 4 hour resistance. I wouldn't mark this as just one level. I'd kind of mark the whole zone, which is where it is right now. But it's also got, when you zoom out, a really nice rounded curved bottom. And so we're just looking for it now to hopefully come back and give us a retest. This vector candle here is a good zone to get that retest. It would still be a higher low. It would be around the 4 hour time frame, 50 EMA. It would all be great. But again, if it breaks out, then we're looking for the retest type of entry instead. So that vector candle is at around 0.044 to 0.048. And if we were to get it, you would take your entry and then you would expect that it's going to break out to the upside next. Now, all of these zones, just to be clear, all of these zones that I am marking out, if the price came lower than that, that's invalidated for me because it's too low. It may still create a higher low, but it's come too low to get my interest without further confirmation. So when it comes to stop losses, just because I want to get through as many coins as I can in this video, I'm not going to mark everything out exactly. But for me, the stop losses would be under the vector candle zones that I'm marking out in this video. So just know that, because everything I'm talking about is for the purpose of trading, not long-term investing. Here's another one. This is Filecoin. And again, you can see the nice rounded bottom, the 4 hour resistance zone. It hasn't quite made it there. This one is a bit of a caution because the 800 EMA has been acting as resistance, and currently we have a lower high. So it is struggling to have the strength that some of the other alts have, but I think it's still worth keeping an eye on. I would actually like to see it come right up into this zone first. So technically create a higher high in comparison to this, then come back for the retest. That's where I would get more interested in taking this trade. I wouldn't take it if it just came back and rejected the 800 EMA again and then gave the pullback. So yeah, I want a little bit more out of this. It doesn't feel like it has the volume of other coins. Now, this one I've got my eyes on. I've alerted the Discord already, not for any particular reason other than just the technical analysis on it looks really good. Again, nice rounded bottom. On this side, it's creating higher highs and higher lows. If it can break out of this 4 hour resistance, then the upside is looking really good. Not that this would be my first target all the way up here. I probably would insert another one somewhere around this level as well, which is around, let's say, 18 to 19 cents. But again, when you actually zoom out on it, the upside potential is really quite large. And that's what I like. It's not that I think it's going to go back to these highs. It's that if the trend remains strong throughout the trade, I've got structure to the left to be able to use as targets. And so that's what I like about it. It's not that I'm saying this is going to the moon, just to be clear. So when I have a look at this recent price action, again, I actually want to see this make it all the way up to that 4-hour resistance, which is at 0.128, then give me a rejection, then give me the higher low there. And again, see how simple this method is. You just need to look for the 4-hour vector within that last trend to the upside and then set your alert above that zone. And if it comes back, most of them, look, it's very, very similar right now. Most of those zones are around the 4-hour 50 EMA. So you just put your alert above that so that you've got time to get back to the chart. If it gets into the zone, you reassess and see if you're getting the signal to enter. And then you're taking your entry on anticipation of it eventually breaking that 4-hour resistance. If it doesn't do that, then we're going the break and retest strategy. We go Link is another one. So again, when you zoom out on Link, let me adjust this right here. You've got a really nice change in trend from the downtrend now to the uptrend. Look at this 4-hour EQ level where it was support many times. It's come back and is now resistance. So again, lucky entry is going to be a higher low. Second chance entry will be a break and retest of this zone. Again, I'm just going back to the latest uptrend and looking for that vector to mark out as my ideal entry zone, which is between 15.5 and 16.5. If I get it, great. If not, I'm looking for an entry after we break out of the resistance and come back for a retest. XRP is a little bit different because it has broken out higher really quite recently and it came back to consolidate and then it's moving to the upsides ever since then. It's got its 4-hour resistance here at about 2.63 and the ideal entry is kind of already been there. So a tap on this 200 EMA was the ideal entry, but it hasn't moved out with amazing volume yet. So there is a chance that you may still come back into that zone. I would actually now adjust the zone considering where it's been. I think that this vector candle right here is the one that it's attracted to. So we have to see how we go with XRP. Obviously, if you're not already in, your stop loss now only needs to be under that zone because if it goes any lower than that, again, I'd rather reassess. I wouldn't give up on it though because there's a lot of vector candles here that it could come back to retest. The other thing that could happen with XRP is that it may hold around the 50 EMA and just consolidate there. So if it does that over the weekend, then there could be an entry off the 50 EMA as a second chance option. But ideally, I want to see it come back to the 200 EMA. That's going to give me the best entry possible. So yeah, so that's what I'm seeing on XRP right now. The structure looks, it's interesting, but as always, I'll wait for confirmation before jumping in. But just before I move on to any other altcoins, just a quick heads up for full transparency. I hold pre-IPO equity in Ripple Labs, which is the company that is associated with XRP. I've mentioned this a few times on this channel. Just to be clear, Ripple Labs doesn't control the XRP ledger and technically the two are separate, but in the eyes of the public, often it's seen that there is a relationship there. So even though Ripple hasn't IPO'd yet, those shares could one day convert into equity. And for that reason, I think it's really important for me to be upfront about it anytime that I'm talking about XRP. After all, my company is licensed in the UAE for investment advisory services. So I'm very aware of how the law works worldwide for content creators when talking about or promoting things they also have a financial interest in, like shares, for example. And that's why you'll always get disclosure from me, even if disclosures are a little bit boring. But anyhow, if you want to read more about that for any weird reason, I feel like just every now and then I should probably mention it as well as having the disclaimer, just so that you're aware, especially when I do talk about XRP. But if you want to read more about it, there is a disclaimer down in the description of this video. So now let's keep going, see if I can find any other potential setups for the weekend. Render looks a little bit interesting. Again, if we zoom out, it's 4-hour resistance. It's here prior support as well. So that's an interesting zone around 5.4. Lots of upside potential on Render as well. It's got, again, a nice curve with a double bottom. Like I said, a lot of alts have this right now when you zoom out and look at them on the 4-hour time frame. And since then, they've been creating higher highs and higher lows. So ideally, I want to see Render again come up to its resistance. It's nearly there, but it's just not there yet. And then if it does that, an ideal zone is going to be here at this vector, which is, somewhere above the 200 EMA, but around the 50 EMA. That'll be ideal for a pullback entry. Otherwise, same as everything else, we're looking at a break and retest entry. All right, now I've just clicked on 𝗬𝗍. So let's have just a quick chat about 𝗬𝗍 and how I feel about it. So for me, I'm not invested in 𝗬𝗍. So I it doesn't really affect me what has happened. If I talk to you about it as just a pure technical analyst, on the 4-hour time frame when you zoom out on 𝗬𝗍, it doesn't really look like much has happened. Like, let's have a look at this 4-hour chart. If there was no news about 𝗬𝗍, this would just look like normal price action. So am I interested in holding 𝗬𝗍? Am I interested in buying the dip on 𝗬𝗍? No, because like I said, I never owned it in the first place. Would I trade it? Yeah, when the price action shows me a reason to trade it, I will trade it. Could trade it long or short. Right now, the price action is not showing me anything. So it's simply just consolidating. So I'm not getting involved in this as a trade at all yet. But if it starts to show some structure, whether that is a lower high for a short entry or a higher low for a long entry, I may take it as a trade. But that's all it really means to me. Just remember, you know, we could get pullback entries. If we don't, then there's a chance that we're going to get breakout and retest entries. And if we don't get either of those, then hopefully we get our pullbacks early into next week. But I'll be back on YouTube before that happens anyway, and we can reassess what's happened over the weekend. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button. And if you are looking for somewhere to trade on, just check out Bitunix. It's a non-KYC exchange. You can trade on it anywhere in the world. It's the one that I use for most of my futures trading. And if you use the link in the description down below, you will get a 20% rebate on all of your trading fees for life.